Welcome to Green and Red, scrappy politics for scrappy people, a regular podcast on radical environmental and anti-capitalist politics, brought to you by Bob Bazanko and Scott Parkin.
Welcome to the Silky Smooth Sounds of the Green and Red podcast. Your co-host Scott Parkin in New York City today. Bob is off on assignment, but he will be back soon. And today we're going to be talking about a little struggle going on down in South Florida. A cherished coastal preserve is under attack by the campus administration that was appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis recently, which is part of his kind of bigger right-wing takeover of universities and colleges in Florida. It's his like anti-woke right-wing takeover. But what we're going to be talking about is that they're also clearing a preserve of trees as part of the campus. And so joining me is Jinx Ashforth, who is author, artist of New College's first graphic novel, Thesis, is a sort of incoming PhD student at New College in the fall, and then is also has been part of the Save New College resistance, and is also part of this local campaign to save the Upland Preserve, as I believe it's called. So, Jinx, welcome to the Green and Red podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. And so maybe just to kick off, can you give us a little bit of for our listeners, the DeSantis stuff has been national news, and so people are probably familiar with it, but could you just give us like a brief sort of background on what DeSantis has been doing to universities in Florida, and particularly what he's been doing to New College, which is a probably more progressive left sort of college community in Southwest Florida?
Yeah, New College is one of the seven weird sisters of schools like Reed, right, Evergreen, that have no grades, and you're only competing with yourself as a result. So the idea that it's a woke college, we've had very conservative people come here and design their own classes, design their own thesis at the undergrad level, which is a requirement. So it was like the most PhD producing field scholar. If there's a medal, we swung way above our weight class per capita. So more Fulbrights than Harvard per person. So to say it's only woke, it was excellent. And it's a hotbed of intellectual thought. And the model we're using right now is 1933 Frankfurt, Germany, where they down the most woke institution there to clear their path to the ultimate takeover. So Frankfurt University is our model. So within the 12 state universities in Florida, New College is the smallest, the most vulnerable, and also the most excellent. So if you really wanted to do excellence in education and free thinking, which is what DeSantis's party line is, you would have celebrated New College, not come and literally razed it to the ground.
And what has DeSantis specifically done? Also, the issues around New College actually were national news. I was looking at an article by Nathan Robinson from last year. And so what has DeSantis specifically done to New College?
And I think Nathan might be an alumnus of our college. He's very literally, with Hillsdale College and the Manhattan Institute, trying to use this as a beachhead. And whatever happens here, heat maps out. And Penn America is actually keeping a heat map of attacks on our college, which then are attempted on other colleges in other states. So what he's done, we had a board of trustees, which is 13 people, undisturbed, serving no pay. And it's within the governor's right to the board of governors to replace 6 of them, and then the governor gets to appoint the 7th. So they came in, and apparently for about 4 or 5 years ago, they started seeking out people who would serve, so bodies they could put in those chairs. And so they just came in January 6th, 2023, and swept the trustees out, appointed their own, and have been making fumbling grasps towards, let's dismantle DEI. Mm-hmm. Okay, in our school, it sounds really good, especially when Christopher Rufo puts it up on his Substack, right? The DEI department was 4 people. Right. 3 of whom were reassigned and continue being just as woke as they were, and they fired the bit. So it's a lot of symbolism like that, symbolic moves. But then the destroying buildings on campus that have historic significance. And as soon as the kids left, as soon as the students graduated, that week, trees started coming down.
And so maybe we can move into that a little bit. Tell us about the Uplands Preserve, and then we can talk a little bit about what they're doing there.
Sure. It's one thing you and I were talking about Larry Arnn's show, the president of Hillsdale College. and his very first podcast, interviewing DeSantis, saying that Corcoran had come to DeSantis and said, we're going to destroy the college. And we thought that meant, oh, the trustees, oh, the academics, okay. And then buying 1,000 athletes to come and be our students. Okay, we absorbed that. Now he's physically destroying the college. And I think that horrified us, I think, beyond, because this land should be protected. I live in the Uplands. It's 110 homes right to the north of New College campus. And we have a preserve that's, you want to say a quarter linear mile, and it's home to ospreys, pileated woodpeckers. There were some gopher tortoises, mangroves, and 150-year-old slash pines and oaks. So each of these are individually protected.
Mhm.
Then because it was the Uplands Preserve, part of our neighborhood, it's protected. And because there's a master plan from years ago on the books that still covers that land, it's meant to be a passive recreation preserve forever. So about 10 different ways. This is also the historic Charles Ringling Circus Mansion landscape. It's on the historic register. There's about 10 different legal ways that not even touching one of the leaves on one of these trees is verboten.
Is
So
it state environmental laws that protect it or federal environmental laws?
some of the endangered species get into federal, but definitely at the state level, some of the species and then the historic register part.
It is DeSantis also trying to roll back some of the environmental regulation in the state. I know that he's done things like taken all reference to the climate crisis out of state materials and state websites and things like that.
Because you don't want to tell Miami with its voter base that it's not going to exist in 10 years. So yeah, as part of rolling that back. Plus, I think it really serves as smashing the tree huggers narrative. Because as you and I were also saying, this is land that goes right up to a beach. Right? It's literally water adjacent. So to put anything there would take. So he's rolling back 1,000 laws to knock the trees down and flatten the preserve. And then he's claiming through Corcoran that they're going to build all these incredible things that are going to put out like all this ideology, all this great books program, and go back to Greece and Rome. And he would never be able to build it this close between the bay and the airport. We're about a mile between the bay and the airport. So FCC rules, there's so many things that govern this that make what he's doing legally impossible. Besides being a bad idea, basically all it does is harm people who care about that land.
Right. And I guess the as far as the people who care about it go, how has the resistance been looking? It looked like there was a pretty fierce-spirited resistance that rose up around Save New College and pushing back on the anti-woke campaign. But how is the Upland Preserve like fitting in with that? The fight to save the Upland Preserve fitting in with that?
It's, as friends will tell you, like I went to the Revolutionary College, but I was a little introverted graphic novelist, right? So I can't compare this to the 300 other resistances I've been in because I haven't been in any other than
Right.
just being at woke school. But he really hit very hard, and there was a spirited resistance. If you've been looking at national news, the Save New College movement, which we're still part of, has expanded into the Save the Uplands movement. And it's interesting, the space that is being held for grief, right? Anger and hurt and those things come first. But like on the 30th, we'll be having a celebration of life for the trees and gathering together because this is our neighborhood. Our kids grew up here, right? We walk our dogs there, or other people walk their dogs there. I'm now trespassed from campus and I will be arrested if I go in that area. But there is pushback, but I'm proud of us doing the kind of self-care that we need to do as well, because one of the things that broke my heart was one of the kids in the neighborhood would go and tape on his phone these 3 pileated woodpecker chicks. I made it through this without crying last time, but he just went one day and they were dead. The oak tree had been felled and there was their nest on the ground. Holding space for that, as well as doing the outward work of raising awareness, I think is one of the sweeter characteristics of this part of the resistance.
And then you've also had some running afoul of the law around this as well recently, correct?
Yes, checked, but not checkmate quite yet. I can still appeal the trespass from campus for 5 years. So the idea that a couple Saturdays ago, DeSantis said that the city of Sarasota came in, and we've been trying to find other agencies and legal ways to do this. So we started with calling in the city because this is a jurisdictional, right? Like state campuses are state land, but they're granted, right? So who has jurisdiction to stop this? So the city said, stop while we figure this out for a weekend, for the long weekend of Memorial Day. And so we called in the city, said he's still knocking over trees. They came in and they said, stop for the weekend while we figure this out. So I got down there on the Saturday because I live on this block and you can hear the construction noises. So I got a drone in the air. I got these other things I was videoing on my phone, that the construction is right there at the destruction of these pine trees coming down, these protected trees. And Corcoran himself rolled up in a black SUV.
Mm.
And I already had my camera rolling on my phone, and I asked, why are you doing this? It's illegal. The stop order is right there in bright orange. Not even you can miss it. And I was like, why are you doing this? And then I was able to drive up to our cop shop because it's a square mile campus. Everything is right on top of each other. And he was getting out of his SUV and talking to the campus police, like all two of them, and saying, she tried to break into my car and assault my 7-year-old daughter in the passenger seat. And I'm like, what in God's name? Like, what are you talking about? So I was issued a trespass order there on the spot. So I questioned him on what's now his campus. I was on land. I was not in the construction zone. I wasn't doing anything wrong. And I can't go to the end of my block without getting arrested.
And this is also where you're going to be a student in the fall, where you have a trespass.
New College, yes and no. New College has arrangements with other schools. So there's a campus of USF, the University of South Florida, that's 3 blocks that way. New College is adjacent that way, but they share facilities. So I wouldn't be able to go to the shared library, the shared health service. I would get arrested for going to my gym that I'm paying tuition for.
The reason that they're doing this is what's been in the news is they're building a sports facility, quote unquote. And I'm wondering if you could just talk about that for a minute.
One of the tactics that they're using to great advantage, and it's my first time with it, I'm sure other people have better experience, is not nailing down which of 5 floating plans they're actually adhering to. So, for instance, they thought they had a deal with the airport because the CEO of the airport clerked with Corcoran when he was in Tallahassee. So they thought they had a done deal of building the facilities on shared we would just acquire through the backroom dealings. That got stopped. So nominally that should have called for a stop and a reassessing of the whole master plan. That didn't happen. So what could be happening is that they're trying to build a stadium on land. So they're going to build a stadium. They're going to build a Freedom Institute in the Orwellian sense. They're going to either soccer fields, a stadium, a Freedom Institute, housing. So there's 5 different plans, none of which are approved, investigated, EPA certified. The idea right now is that if they get all the land that they want, they will build a stadium for sports teams we don't have, and they'll find a way to use bond money instead of actually having to take out the loan. It's amazingly beautiful in its deviousness. But if you ask me, why are these trees falling, or why are students getting kicked out of the dorm buildings that'll be flattened, there would be one of 5 answers, and they're not submitting any of these for actual review.
The final question is, for this part of the fight, what can folks who are listening to this podcast do to help, even if they're like far away, like in New York City or California?
Right. And the Save New College movement and the Save the Uplands movement are getting more online because, for instance, we're going to the Board of Governors meeting, who nominally, right, this should be in their purview. So if they're able to look for Save Uplands and Save the New College movement online and join, that would be fantastic, because that's how we're going to be doing petitions. It's going to be the court of public opinion that stops this guy, because everything in Florida has been bought and paid for.
Right. Jinx, it's been good talking to you. We've been talking with Jinx Ashforth about Save the Uplands Preserve, which is related to New College and down in Southwest Florida. Please check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to us on any of the many podcast platforms, give us a rate and review, as it helps us with the algorithms. And if you really like us, go to greenredpodcast.org and hit the support button, or become a patron at patreon.com/greenredpodcast. Jinx, it's been good talking with you. I'm glad we were able to speak today. For everyone else out there, make trouble and misbehave. We'll talk to you again soon.